వీడియో కూడా గ్రీన్ కనిపిస్తుంది.
వీడియో అంటే మేమంతా విజిటర్స్ కదా, అది అసలు ఐడియా లేదు. ఒకటే కదా ఉంది, ఒకటే లాగిన్ కదా. ఇది డిస్ప్లే అవుతుందా మీది? ఓకే ఓకే. ఓకే ఇప్పుడు ఇక్కడ స్టార్ట్ అయింది.
ఇన్ఫో చేసి పెట్టా. అయితే సింగిల్ లాగిన్ మల్టీ లాగిన్ లేదు. ఇప్పుడు నేను సపోర్ట్ నా సిస్టంలో యాక్టివేట్ లింక్ ఉంది కదా, వచ్చేసి పాస్వర్డ్ చెక్ చేసి జస్ట్ అట్లా వేసి ఇక్కడ వచ్చా. ట్రై చేసి ఇక్కడ రాలేదు.
ఇప్పుడు
ఆవిడది
ఏమని కనిపిస్తుంది సార్ మనకు?
ఉదయభాస్కర్ డీజీ ఫార్మసీ.
అది మీరు సెట్ చేశారా సార్? లేకపోతే ఆవిడ దాంట్లో జాయిన్ అయితే రిప్లేస్
లేదు లేదు, మనం రిజిస్టర్ చేసాం కదా, ఆ నేమ్ అలా డిస్ప్లే అవుతుంది. చదవది ఇలా కనిపిస్తే ఏం బాగుంటుంది లైవ్లో. ఫుల్ స్క్రీన్ రావాలి కదా.
ఇది మాకు వెబ్ఎక్స్లో ఇలా ఉంటుందా సార్ ఇప్పుడు?
యూట్యూబ్
మేము చూస్తాం
యూట్యూబ్లో
నేను రిజిస్టర్ అయిపోయి
అప్పలు ఒక్క నిమిషం ఉంది. నువ్వు రిజిస్టర్ అప్పులా ఒకసారి యూట్యూబ్ లింక్ చూద్దాం. నీ వాయిస్ వస్తుందో చూడు. ఇప్పుడు అన్నీ సైలెంట్ పెట్టుకుంటే ఏమి పెడుతుంది?
తెలుగులో రావట్లేదు.
వచ్చేదిగా ఇన్ని కలిసే నేను.
ఈయన ఏం చేసేటప్పుడు అప్పుడు పోయినప్పుడు
అప్పుడు పెరు
పెరుగు. ఇప్పుడు కూడా అక్కడ ఉన్నాడు. మెక్సికోకి వచ్చాడు.
సౌండ్ వస్తుందా?
నెగటివ్ వస్తుంది.
మనకి వినపడదు సార్. పబ్లిక్ వినపడుతుంది.
కలిసి వస్తుంది.
Mr. Bhaskar, please start.
Yes, ma'am. Just a moment, ma'am.
కనెక్ట్ అవుతుంది.
నాకు రాలేదు ఏంటి? మీరు అన్నీ అలో కొట్టారు పైన.
Good morning and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Greetings from Pharmaceuticals Export Promotion Council of India. It's an immense pleasure to welcome Her Excellency Ms. Anita Nayak, Ambassador of India to Chile, His Excellency Mr. Manfred Thora, Ambassador of India to Mexico, His Excellency Mr. Suresh K. Reddy, Ambassador of India to Brazil, His Excellency Mr. Sanjay Ranjan, Ambassador of India to Colombia, His Excellency Mr. Subbarayadu, Ambassador of India to Peru and Bolivia, Mr. Uday Bhaskar, Director General Comexil, all the honorable guests from embassies, associated chambers, industry leaders and business delegates, and friends from India. Warm welcome you all for the Indo-Latam Connect, virtual pharma DSM between India and Latin America. It is being hosted by Comexil with the support of Department of Commerce, Government of India and India Missions in Latin America. Associated partners of the event are Colombia India Chamber of Commerce and Industry, India Mexico Business Chamber, India Brazil Chamber of Commerce, Chile India Chamber of Commerce, Incham Peru and Lima Chamber of Commerce. As you may aware, Comexil is an export promotion council for Indian pharmaceuticals working under the Ministry of Commerce. Towards our mandate, we have been organizing country-specific interactive webinars, inviting the regulators, government bodies, and business stakeholders to spread the knowledge and explore possibilities of collaboration with an active support of our missions and the chambers. And so far with LAC, we had wonderful webinars with Mexico, Colombia, Brazil, and Guatemala recently. Indeed, all those webinars had a deep spell and gave precise direction for us to prepare for the larger event of this Indo-Latam Connect. In this 5-day event, we have 90 plus Indian exhibitors dealing with pharmaceutical formulations, APIs, vaccines, herbal and Ayurveda products, surgical and medical devices, and all other pharma-related products and services. The active support of chambers and missions abroad, today we are witnessing the greater participation of more than 150 overseas delegates from the Latin American countries. And in these 5 days, the business delegates will be having one-to-one business meetings. And the overwhelming participation of the business delegates resembles the relevance and importance of LAC region to the Indian pharma industry. Today, inaugural session on opportunities and challenges for Indian pharmaceuticals in LAC, we are going to hear the key insights from all the honorable ambassadors. So without further ado, I welcome Mr. Uday Bhaskar, Director General Comexil, to initiate the round of discussions for the proposed session. Welcome you, sir.
Thank you, Lakshmi. Her Excellency Anita Nayak Ma'am, Ambassador of India to Chile, His Excellency Sri Manpreet Thora Ji, Ambassador of India to Mexico, His Excellency Suresh Reddy Ji Garu, Ambassador of India to Brazil, His Excellency Sri Sanjeev Ranjan Ji, Ambassador of India to Colombia, and His Excellency Sri M. Subbaraju Garu. I welcome you all on behalf of Pharmaceuticals Export Promotion Council of India. Really, it's my privilege and great honor to moderate the discussion on opportunities in pharmaceuticals in the countries. Really, I'm not only I am privileged and honored that the entire Indian pharmaceutical community is honored with the presence of 5 senior diplomats, ambassadors in this event. It's a great event and memorable event, and from the past 1 month we are working very closely with all our embassies. They are so prompt, and sometimes we feel that we are little late. So once again, sir, I welcome you, and it's a great honor, particularly the entire pharmaceutical industry and too. So why we organized this as a discussion is that so different countries and you are very senior most diplomats and have a lot of experience. So there are so many opportunities, particularly in the Latin American countries. So we are going to discuss on bilateral trade in pharmaceutical sector, various business opportunities available in each country, strategies to be followed to consolidate the position of Indian players in respective markets, and challenges for industry and possible solutions and support of missions. At the outset, before Anita ma'am initiates a talk, just I would like to mention about the recent developments in the Indian pharmaceutical industry. As we are all aware of that, we are exporting drugs to more than 200 countries, and last financial year 1920, we have exported $20.58 billion worth of drugs to more than 200 countries. Particularly in this pandemic, 2021, in the first 10 months, April to January, we have exported $19.58 billion worth of drugs with 12.45% growth. It's a very, very encouraging, and particularly during this pandemic, and the entire manufacturing sector is not doing very well. So India recorded 12.45% and trying to hit the target of 25 billion exports in this financial year. So we export almost 32% to North America, and 17% to Africa, and 15% to Africa, and 6% to Latin America. Out of that, 55% of our exports are to highly regulated markets. So when we come to our vaccine front, actually the entire world is looking up to India for the vaccines. The Indian company Bharat Biotech, in collaboration with ICMR, has developed an indigenous vaccine, Covaxin, and the people have started using this, and we are also exporting to different countries, and Government of India has also donated as a gesture to different countries. And Serum Institute of India also developed a vaccine, Covishield, in collaboration with AstraZeneca and Oxford. That is also, we are already exported to 25 countries, and the 50 more countries are in the pipeline. So the Honorable Minister of Commerce in his Parliament address, he said that we have already exported $43 million worth of vaccines. At the same time, Indian companies like Dr. Reddy's, Aurobindo, Hetero, Mankind, and all these companies, Virus-Lee, they are all working on vaccines for COVID-19, and they are at different stages. Certainly in the coming 2 months, their vaccines also will be in the market, and we are going to give a better solution to the entire world to vaccinate the India and India developed vaccines. That's a very joyous moment for Indian pharmaceutical industry. So as you are, Latin America is a very big countries, and they have an emerging market and lot of population, and it's our fourth largest exporting destination. If you see the last Latin American market is 67 billion US dollars. The generic market size where we work is around 17 billion US dollars. But our exports are only 1.34 billion USD with only 7.88% share. So there is a huge potential, particularly with the support of the ambassadors of Mexico, Brazil, Chile, Colombia, and certainly we can able to penetrate the market and we can take it forward. So exports to 2021 April, January, particularly to Latin America is also very encouraging. We have already exported 1.3 billion US dollars worth of drugs with 14% positive growth rate. This is almost on par with the US growth rate. With this, we have our ambassador, ma'am is there. We are very sorry for this. We are unable to see you, madam. Everybody wanted to see you and listen visually also. So we have Anita ma'am. Ma'am, Chile is 1.6 billion size of generic market, and you with your support and proactive approach. In August 2019, India and Chile concluded an agreement which will allow the drug manufacturing companies in India to participate in the tenders made by the government of that country. So certainly this is going to help the Indian exporters. So with this, I request our Honorable Ambassador of India to Chile, Her Excellency Anita Nair ma'am, to speak on the market potential and how we can penetrate the markets and what is your Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Bhaskar. Morning to everyone, whatever. Very quickly, yes, Chile is a 1.6 billion market, of which India has a 6% share, and it's actually the third largest exporter to Chile. The other two, which are ahead of us, the US and Germany, have roughly 14% each of the market. So there's an 8% market share which we can exploit, or we should exploit, to come on par with the US and Germany. We have a pharmaceutical survey on our website which gives some basic information on rules, regulations, how to export to Chile and so on. It's a little outdated, 2018, but most of the information is still valid. We are increasing our exports. Over the last 3 years, we've grown by about 20%. A lot of it is because Chile increasingly is looking for less expensive medicines. And what we are waiting for to really make a breakthrough is the possibility of the government sector being allowed to buy without needing prior approval from the drug regulatory authorities, without them insisting on the drug being registered in Chile. Unfortunately, most of our exporters are focusing on OTC drugs and drugs which are easier to get into the market. So very few of them are going the route of getting the bioequivalence certificate, even though it is not a very long process. At the most it takes 2 years, but it has also been done in 6 months, and it doesn't cost very much. It's about $2,500, $3,000. But very few of our companies have chosen that route, have chosen to come and get their drugs registered in Chile so that they can be eligible for government tenders, for any tenders, eligible for import into Chile. So I think that's the first thing our companies need to do. More and more of them should come and have their products registered in Chile. Secondly, having a local representative is good. It is even better to set up your own company here. There are 3 or 4 Indian companies which have come in and set up shop here, and they have seen the results. One of the reasons why it is good to have a setup here and to warehouse here is because of the very short delivery times which tenders call for. So even if you win a tender and you can't deliver on time, that creates a problem, and as you all know, it takes almost 3 months for shipments to reach from India to Chile. Mr. Bhaskar, you mentioned the agreement. It is not an agreement which allows all Indian companies to participate in government tenders. It is an agreement between the government procurement agency here, Senebast, and STC in India, saying that Senebast will place orders through STC. Unfortunately, that is not yet happening, primarily because of the insistence of the government of Chile on on Senebast only procuring drugs which are already registered in Chile. And as I said, there aren't many of them. But the scope is huge, especially as Chile is looking, the majority of drugs, bioequivalence registered drugs which are bought in Chile are pertaining to cancer, to HIV, and these are, and various antivirals, and these are products which we have strengths in and which we produce very good generic versions of. So the scope is there. Our companies need to be a little more proactive in terms of entering the market and getting their drugs registered. As and when the medical regulations change, there is an ongoing push to allow the government procurement agency to buy low-cost generic drugs without local registration based on FDA EU approvals. This legal process is going on. We are all waiting for that to happen because that would really open up the market. But there's no time frame, unfortunately. But in the meantime, my suggestion is please try and get your drugs registered here and set up shop here, or find a very good local representative. I won't say anything more because there's a long list of speakers. So just best of luck, and I hope we will see the trend of Indian exports to Chile rising and going on successfully with your efforts, Pharmexil, and my colleagues. Thank you.
Ma'am, thank you for your really well said exposures. We'll touch with. We'll work out that STC Senebast agreement also, and we'll update the recent developments also. Thank you very much. Now, Latin America's most developed market is Mexico. It's the second largest drug market in Latin America after the Brazil. It's almost a 10.6 billion market, but our share is only 160 million. That is 3.5% only. So there is a huge potential, and we are closely working with our ambassador and the chambers of Mexico, and I think, sir, His Excellency Manpreet Gauraji, your inputs are going to help the Indian participants as well as the participants from Mexico to take it forward. Thank you, sir. Please go ahead, sir.
Well, thank you, Bhaskar ji. Namaste. Good evening to everyone in India. Buenos días a todos en México y todos los participantes de la América Latina. I wish I could greet my friends in Brazil in Portuguese, but I'm unable to do that. In any way, it's great to see everybody, particularly my colleagues in Chile, in Brazil, in Colombia, and in Peru, and of course all the participants that are here with us today. You know, I think I might be the only one amongst the speakers today who has been ambassador to two of the countries. I have earlier been ambassador in Peru also, and now in Mexico. So there's a certain extended continuity I can bring to my experience of pharmaceutical trade between India and Latin America. I will, of course, restrict myself largely to Mexico today because my able colleague, Ambassador Subaraju, who is now the ambassador in Lima, is here. I believe things would have evolved, things would have changed also over the years in Peru. I always have found it somewhat baffling that our pharma exports to Latin America have only scratched the surface, as it were, and that our market share is only a minuscule amount of the total market size. And the reason why it's a little baffling is because in reality, these are countries they're all developing countries with different levels, of course, different stages of development, but they are all developing countries with a fair amount of poor people, fiscal situation of governments usually in a bit of a tight spot, and therefore the need to save government budgets and revenues. But with this background, I find that the medicine in Latin America, earlier in Peru, my experience, and certainly today in Mexico, again, my own experience, are excessively expensive. There is no reason why the Mexican public, the common man or woman, the poor person, needs to step into a pharmacy and literally pay a very large amount of his or her income or savings on quite basic medicines. I find it absolutely impossible to understand. It is something that I have tried to discuss in Peru earlier, many years ago, and I discuss almost on a daily basis here in Mexico. I got the opportunity to discuss this in detail last Sunday, Valentine's Day, which was the morning when our vaccines from India arrived in Mexico. And after that, I was able to spend almost the entire morning and afternoon with His Excellency, the President of Mexico, and many of his ministerial colleagues. And I was able to discuss all this in detail. Much as I found in Peru earlier, I found that all of them admitted to where the problem is. And that is that there are West interests and there are old comfortable clubs, as it were, amongst the manufacturers, particularly multinational companies and retail chains that seem to not allow things to change very rapidly over here, because that would affect their own interests. Everybody seems to understand be it in Peru earlier or be it in Mexico today. Everyone seems to be unhappy with the situation. Everyone knows that drugs are too expensive for the common person, that it does not fulfill the goals of each president, and I'm sure every president or head of government of all the Latin American countries that are present here today would agree that the stated goal is to provide affordable healthcare to the public. In many cases, these are also electoral promises of many of the chief executives and presidents of these countries. But how do you break this nexus, as it were, and how do you make sure that cheaper medicines come to the public? In my view, and what I have been told by everybody, including our own pharmaceutical trade, and has been admitted to me by the Mexican government officials, somewhat different from the more easier process that appears to be prevailing in Chile, as we heard now from Ambassador Anita Nair. But over here, a very large part of the problem is the extremely long, cumbersome, expensive, complex process of drug registration. There is the drug registration agency here, COFEPRIS, which does take a very long time to ensure that the drugs are permitted for import and sale in Mexico. Again, that is not a scenario that anybody seems to like. Not a scenario that anybody seems to want to persist with, but unfortunately it is a scenario that everyone is living with at the moment. So we have been trying to request Mexican government, the Mexican authorities for a long time, and in more recent days and weeks we have had the opportunity to increase our efforts, which is to suggest to the Mexican authorities that some amount of reform of the drug registration process is essential. What we have suggested to them is the following: that we do know that there is absolutely no way, and neither would anybody, least of all I or the Indian industry or farmers or Mexico or the government of India, would ever suggest that quality standards or safety standards should be sacrificed. No. On the contrary, we are confident that everything that we will bring over here will meet every standard of quality and safety. What we have suggested is that where our certain medicines, our plants and factories back in India, which have already been certified and approved by, let us say, the US FDA, by, let us say, the European Medicines Agency, by the Drug Regulation Agency in the UK, at least those drugs from those plants should be allowed to be imported into Mexico at a faster pace. Therefore, can you at a faster pace? They should be allowed. There should be a fast-track process of getting those to come into Mexico. There is no need why those should require a wait of 2 or 3 years. Documentation that runs into tens of thousands of pages. Yet again, physical plant inspections by COFEPRIS officials, for which they neither have the time nor the resources, and therefore the plant visits are only scheduled 2 or 3 years later. None of that is necessary. It should be possible to condense all of that into a much faster process, much as the COVID vaccination process initiation of this has demonstrated to all of us. Much like that, these have been emergency use authorizations, of course. We are not even suggesting that. We are saying do your due diligence, but it should be possible to compress that into a much simpler time frame, into a much simpler process, faster process. If that can be done, that would make things much easier over here. I should tell the Indian industry that other than what needs to be done by Mexico and in Mexico, I think the Indian industry also needs to make sure that they show the resilience and the patience that they need to enter this market. They do need alliances and good partners over here. There are plenty available. They need to come. They need to come again and again if required to be able to make those alliances. And they also need to seriously look at manufacturing over here. There are several Indian companies already doing that with investments over here, manufacturing over here. That needs to be done. It is a very large market, a very attractive market. 130 million is Mexico alone. If you include other countries in the region, the Pacific Alliance, if you were to look at that as one grouping, or Mexico with Central America and CARICOM, if you were to look at that as a second grouping, and if you were to look northwards towards the North American market, comprising NAFTA, Mexico, US, and Canada, this is a very, very attractive base to work on, Mexico. And therefore, please do consider manufacturing over here also. In recent months, the Mexican government, which as I hinted earlier, has itself been quite upset with the state of things, with the cost of drugs available over here, including in the public health care sector, with the very large amount of budgetary resources that need to be spent by government hospitals and clinics purchasing medicines, much more expensive than they ought to be able to get. In recent months, they have outsourced this process to UNOPS, the UN Office, United Nations Office of Project Services, and they have told the UNOPS to please do the tendering and international procurement for them. Now, these tenders, UNOPS have already started issuing and doing, potentially are worth about $4 billion over the next 3 or 4 years, perhaps even more. So you can see that the size of these international tenders is very large. Once there is a fair competition, free competition, I have no doubt, absolutely, that many Indian companies and products will manage to win these tenders. I have absolutely no doubt about it, with the confidence that I have in both the quality and the standards and the cost efficiency of Indian manufacturers. Many of you are aware of this, the Indian pharmaceutical manufacturers. Those of you who may not be, please get in touch with the UNOPS or get in touch with us. Make sure that you participate in these tenders. They are once again not turning out to be an easy process, and Mexican authorities themselves did this to me a week ago. For reasons that I've already mentioned, there are plenty of spoilers who are happy to stall any fundamental reforms, but the effort goes on both by the Mexican government and by us and by many in the international community. So the advantages are huge. $160 billion, $1 million, which is what on average India has been exporting pharmaceutical products to Mexico. This has remained all constant for some time. But the emergency of 2020, the greater visibility of the value proposition of a country like India, pharmaceuticals from India, has seen very substantial growth in the last 10 months, much larger than what we had seen in the past. And therefore, clearly the value proposition of Indian pharmaceuticals is already realized over here. We need to seize the opportunity. Indian manufacturers and exporters, the Mexican partners who import from India, all of them need to be aware of and seize this opportunity, knock on many more doors, continue to show that we can, with the help of drugs from India, reduce the cost of healthcare, both public and private, in Mexico, which is a win-win situation for everyone. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, His Excellency, for your in-depth analysis. And not only as a diplomat, as a social scientist, you have also expressed the concerns of the people of Peru as well as the Mexico. As you have rightly mentioned about the pricing, India is known for supplying quality medicines at affordable price. That is the answer to the entire world. Whatever the reasons may be, we Indian pharmaceutical industry unable to enter very strongly into the Latin American market. But now the Indian companies become multinationals, particularly 9 out of top 25 global generics are from India. So most of them are operating in Mexico. His Excellency, you have rightly mentioned about the global tendering through UNOPS with the support of Your Excellency. We organized a webinar and we circulated the tender documents, and more than 100 people have participated in that webinar. Certainly, we'll take your suggestions and we'll take it forward. And this kind of a discussion, particularly with 5 senior-most ambassadors, certainly will make the Indian pharmaceutical industry as well as the Latin American countries will think very seriously about what we are proposing to do for the Latin American countries in general, and Mexico in particular. Thank you very much, sir. The Brazil, our Suresh Reddy ji is there, and I guess I'll say in my Telugu, he is from Andhra Pradesh. Namaskaram, Suresh Reddy garu. And good morning to you. With your before you go as an ambassador to Brazil, you organized a webinar, and you discussed about how to take it forward, particularly in the area of pharmaceuticals. Brazil is always a very strong exporting partner to India. It is the 6th largest exporting partner, and it's a very the big market also. It's more than 22 billion market. Again, our exports are not even 500 million. So in these, particularly from the past 2-3 months, Lakshmi, in collaboration with our mission, particularly Mexico, Colombia, and Brazil. So we are closely working even with the chambers also. So to taking it forward. With this, sir, I welcome you to give your remarks or suggestions or an advice to Indian pharmaceutical industry and Pharmexcel in particular to take it forward.
Thank you very much. And greetings to my colleagues. First I'd like to start by complimenting the Indian pharma industry for the outstanding performance, reaching $19.5 billion in spite of the challenges imposed by the pandemic. That's some really remarkable achievement, and I can understand it must have been quite challenging. So I really like to compliment them on that. Insofar as the vaccine is concerned, I thought I'll give you the latest update for Brazil. Government has procured 4 million doses from Serum, and it has signed a contract for 20 million doses from Bharat Biotech. And next week, a delegation is going to India to increase the dosage being procured. So I feel from the current exports of $475 million to Brazil, the numbers could easily go close to $1 billion in this year itself. And in the process, I believe they have really opened up the door for a quick engagement in the pharma sector. Next week, the delegation is going to India I'm trying to see if we can have a meeting organized with pharmaceutical through pharmaceutical members. I will confirm it to you. Today I'm going to have a meeting with the Minister of Health to fine tune the discussion, to fine tune the details. So I'll come back to you on that. What I'm really surprised is what my colleagues have said and what everybody has been talking about. That Brazil is a large market. The total market value is about $32 billion. And last year they imported about close to $8 billion worth of pharma products. And in this, India, what we call to be the pharmacy of the world, our share is only about $4 billion. So there's a big disconnect. Now, that is what I really want our friends in the pharmaceutical industry to think about. And I'm glad to see that we have 98 participants in this meeting. I just checked. I'd like to again extend a very warm welcome to them, and I feel more heartened to see this active participation. Now, when we look at the market, I was just looking at the market share of the other exporters to Brazil. India's share is about 8% of this market in terms of imports into Brazil. The US is 16. Now, Germany, France, Swiss, UK, Denmark, Swiss, Belgium, etc. put together something like 30%. Now, what we find here is that it's typical of other Latin American markets, which is that the branded products tend to dominate the market, while the generic products constitute about 10% of the market. And they do have a healthy generic drug manufacturing industry. So we supply about 27% of the API requirements. We also have many Indian companies which are present here, both which are representative offices as well as some of them have manufacturing units also. But it still doesn't answer the question, why are our companies not willing to tap into this market in a much larger way? I tell my Brazilian friends, the Brazilian companies, that look, Indian market is challenging. It is not an easy market. But the fact is that no other market gives you the scope of a $300 million middle class. And for the effort they put into the Indian market is where they'll get a much bigger return. And it is the same message I would like to tell to our friends in the pharmaceutical industry. Yes, this is Portuguese-speaking country, and the situation is not easy. The distance is high, the logistics costs are on the highest side. But at the end of the day, this is a $32 billion market. And with a bit more of focus and effort, I do believe that within a span of 2 years, our companies will start to realize the fruit of the effort in this market. Now, since I've been here for about 4 months. I should say I've had 3 or 4 meetings with the president of ANVISA, and he was very gracious enough to join us in the event commercial which we organized. We have also had technical presentation by ANVISA to our members, to the pharmaceutical companies. And similarly, we had the presence of Excellency Executive Secretary of the Ministry of Health joined us in the evening. And I have been daily meeting them practically every second day, every second week or third week. I am in touch with somebody in the Ministry of Health or with ANVISA. And I should say, they really respect Indian pharmaceutical industry. They respect the contribution being made by Indian pharmaceutical industries to their own national needs. And with this kind of an appreciation from the receiving end, I think it is time our companies increase their presence here. And we naturally are here to work with them, to support them. And in fact, we have consulted the Indian pharma companies who are present here, identified a set of issues which are hampering their operations here, including import, and we have taken it up officially with ANVISA also. And we are studying those issues. That is, I'm stating that only to show the willingness with which ANVISA is also engaging with us. Actually, this is the time for our companies to tap into this opportunity. Because now there's a greater awareness about our potential, there's a greater awareness about what we can bring to the table. So to say, I'm not promoting Indian pharma as a what you call an alternative to the high-cost branded product. No, I'm promoting Indian pharma as a valuable partner in the meeting the healthcare needs. And pricing, etc., would naturally be determined by the supplying company. I'm not getting the pricing part at all. For me, all I'm only stating is that you got a quality partner in Indian companies. And so let us build on the partnership, let us build on the awareness that has been created. And I do believe we need to do more events with Brazil specifically focusing on different sectors. Like you'll be happy to know that after we did the pharma event, we also did an event for medical devices. And it was again a big success. We had more than 150 companies participate in the medical devices. And I should say many of them were quite surprised to know the quality of this medical devices which is being manufactured in India, and also the potential for sourcing from India. They were not aware of. So this is what I'll also tell for my friends in the Indian pharma industry, that yes, let's start looking at Brazil more seriously, more actively, and you need to be a bit patient. As I said, same reason that it's not an easy market. It will take some time to settle down to understand, but trust me, it is worth it. Because nowhere else do you have a market in which a population of 210 million, economy of 2 billion, and which is importing $10 billion worth of drugs, and also where the per capita expenditure on healthcare is more than $800 per year by the government, and in addition to that, about 50% more is spent by private out-of-pocket expenses. So we are talking of a market per capita expenditure of about close to $1,500 per year. And very few markets give you that kind of a potential for selling your products, positioning yourself. And I think with that, I would like to really stop here, and I'm looking forward to get more ideas, participants, what more they want to see. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. As far as the Brazil delegation visit to Bharat Biotech is concerned, we love to coordinate, and we'll talk to the management. And yesterday, the managing director of chairman of Bharat Biotech, Krishna Ella, got a excellence award, Genome Valley Award. And in that meeting, what they were telling, 65% of the global vaccines are produced in only one Genome Valley. So in the coming days, almost 7-8 Indian companies are seriously working on the COVID vaccine. Certainly will coordinate their visits. As you have rightly mentioned, during your interaction with the Anvisa always closely working with the CDSCO. Even we invited them for international regulators meet organized by Pharmexil with DOC. The Anvisa was there, and we suggested some sort of a coordination or a convergence should be there between the national regulatory authorities and Anvisa. And at the same time, they can also think about allowing the units which are approved by US FDA and PMDA or UK, other international regulatory agencies. So certainly we'll take all your suggestions into consideration, sir, and thank you for your valuable inputs, and thank you very much, sir.
There was one point with the commission. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I've been talking here is something which I feel we also can look at and Latin American region, which is that not only to look at the COVID-related vaccines, but also to look at supplying vaccines for the national healthcare annual vaccination program. Now that is part of the agenda with which I'm working on with them, because they don't need to source their vaccines for the annual vaccination program. And so I'm trying to see if we can meet on their needs based on our own capabilities in this field. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. As you have rightly mentioned, most of the vaccine manufacturers are focusing only on COVID-19. The other vaccine programs for universal immunization is also to be parallelly manufactured and distributed. So thank you very much, sir. Sir, we have His Excellency Sri Sanjeev Ranjanji is there, Ambassador of India to Colombia. Yesterday he was taken pains to even to participate in the test of, so he has given so much of time, and that itself indicates that how serious all our ambassadors are there. Generally they will leave that job to some junior man to take care. That itself gives a lot to the Indian pharmaceutical industry and your commitment. So certainly things will move in expected lines. Now I request Sri Sanjeev Ranjanji to give his valuable message and inputs to the Indian pharmaceutical industry as well as our Latin American friends. Thank you, sir.
Good evening to all participants in India y buenos días a todos los participantes en Latinoamérica.
अभी स्टार्ट करने पहले
It's a great pleasure
click किया
to see such a large number of participants and a greater pleasure to be with my esteemed colleagues and seniors in this platform.
YouTube लाइव करने पहले
You know, one of the disadvantages of being down the line is that most of the points have been covered by my esteemed seniors.
बट मेरे को बात नहीं
And
so once after
just a correction for knowledge of all the participants. You know, this happens to be my third posting after Peru, Argentina, and now in Colombia. So just a correction over there. You know, so the points which have been sort of noted, you know, to give a context to the situation, you know, clearly, you know, something which has come home very clearly during this pandemic is the need for augmenting the health capacity in nearly all the Latin American countries and several other parts of the world too, whether it is infrastructure, whether it is surge capacity, and obviously the vaccines. And both therapeutics and vaccines are now needed in much sort of larger quantities and perhaps in a much quicker time than it was before. We did during the pandemic supply some amount of hydroxychloroquine and paracetamol to Colombia from India, and also sort of shared some of our practices and experiences in managing the pandemic through our own ITEC program. As in what I have heard from my friends and colleagues in the region, out of the total imports of almost $2.7 billion in Colombia, the share of Indian pharma imports is just about $100 million. Now, this is a clear signal, an indicator of the untapped potential and the greater need for engagement in this sector. Obviously, we are in a fortunate position to have several Indian pharma companies present in Colombia, and I see several of them participating here, and I'm very happy that they are doing so, because their experiences are also very important to understand what are the opportunities and the challenges within the pharma sector of the country. Now, Colombia is the fourth largest economy and the third largest population. And generally, you know, it has exhibited stable macroeconomic parameters. So in terms of some of the challenges which you can face in terms of normal business operations don't exist over here. And obviously their market size, as was mentioned by one of my colleagues, was that, you know, you're looking at the Pacific Alliance, you are looking at free trade agreements with other countries that expand the market for your products once you start operations in this part of the world. The pandemic had obviously a huge impact in terms of contraction of the economy, almost 7% decline. But this year we are hoping that growth will once again pick up. Now, notwithstanding the decline, as you can imagine, the government has had to take fiscal measures to assist the various sectors of the economy. It has also to take monetary policy in terms of keeping interest rates low and ensure liquidity in the economy. So the gradual reactivation has started from the end of 2020. And, you know, we expect more expenditure on this sector to take place. First, because, you know, the burden of the COVID and the longer term impact of neglect of the normal disease burden in any society. Now, in terms of the size, it's almost $21 billion, the healthcare sector size, and 60% of this expenditure is covered by the government and remaining by the private sector. And it is expected, you know, this trend line shows that expenditure, the public expenditure and the private expenditure is only going to grow, you know, from about 3 to 4% now to almost 7% by 2028. So the opportunity for marketing of pharma products is only going to augment and not reduce. Now, what are the challenges, you know, that we as a nation, which is increasingly recognized as a pharmacy to the world and has been supplying to, as you rightly mentioned, Mr. Bhaskar, to some of the most regulated markets in the world, and almost more than 50% of our exports are going to those countries. Notwithstanding this situation, we find the similar set of problems which, for example, Ambassador Pura mentioned, in terms of delays in registration of drug formulations or drug products from India. We have tried to engage, and I would suggest, we need to take a concerted effort with Pharmexil, with CDSCO on our side, and in BIMA, as it is called over here, to see how we can reach better understanding to fast track the registration processes. The suggestion given about the US FDA approved plants getting a faster track mechanism for registration is already on the bilateral agenda. We have been discussing this issue, but not really made much breakthrough in this regard. Second, the suggestion again, as I said, we have companies over here, but setting up companies definitely is a advantageous position for any company which has a seriousness attached to what it wants to achieve in this market. Surely alliances and local representatives is another alternative that you should examine for this process. I would also suggest, we could consider, like we suggested, specific subsector, intermediates, API, biologicals, vaccines. If we can get partners from both sides and the pharma industry from both sides to sit together and discuss and share experiences on how they should need to proceed in these particular subsectors. Now, clearly, from what one sees, the way the processes of approval have taken place, particularly for the vaccines, it is obvious to us that that the re-examination and the rethink on some of the old procedures and norms need to be relooked at, and the requirement of the population to a certain extent is subdued because of the pandemic, because that has taken the overriding priority for all governments. And therefore, the requirement for clear, transparent, cost-effective procedures for regulation is an important aspect and priority that we are working on. I would also sort of contend that our Colombian friends or people in the region need to look at the opportunity cost. One was vested interest, which we talked about, and how this plays out at a macro level. On the one hand, you have a higher public expenditure, especially when you have universal healthcare available. On the other, those who are not able to access pharma products at a competitive rate. And this is an experience which I have from 1995 in Lima, 2016 in Argentina, Paraguay, Uruguay, Bolivia, and now Ecuador and Colombia. It is the same situation almost everywhere where established vested players are able to regulate or direct or influence policy in certain direction. But at the macro level, and there was this very important sort of argument made, and which we are not unfamiliar with, given that we had a Bombay club in '91, that we will lose employment as a result of this, and lower labor costs, etc., result in formulation and products. Now, the opportunity cost of doing this is visible to us now, particularly through the pandemic, that you have higher incidence because you do not have the health capacity to provide universal, even if it is theoretically universal coverage, you're not able to provide coverage to everybody. So, definitely the policymakers and those who are in this sector need to take a view on this at the policy level, how they can improve upon the procedure systems to allow products which we are providing to other developed countries also come and benefit the consumers in this part of the world. One other point which I wanted to sort of focus was, the Indian pharmacopoeia. This is something which we are also working upon, due recognition for Indian pharmacopoeia and a sort of information awareness about one of the oldest plant-based traditional medicine, to help immunity and provide innate capacity to fight infection. So this is another area which we are working on, and because one of the challenges we face in this regard is the lack of expertise at the drug regulatory approval authorities to understand the workings of the pharmacopoeia. So, we are starting off from the level of education, in terms of scholarships, in terms of creating chairs, so that the pharmacopoeia eventually gets recognized. And notwithstanding this sort of a situation at this stage, clearly, the formulations such as, health supplements, etc., can still be marketed over here. And as was mentioned, the idea of production in the region also needs to be looked at seriously, increasingly because several countries are now getting tied up in regional arrangements, which sometimes can put our companies at a disadvantage. To take a sort of another sector, Hero produces motorcycles in Colombia and sells it to the whole region. So to that extent, it gives you a market which is larger than perhaps one country's population size. Well, let me conclude over here by saying, that the efforts will need to be continued because this is not going to change overnight. You're not going to win hearts and minds in a day. But surely the idea and the information about the strengths of the sector definitely need to be brought in, and the engagement needs to be continued. Thank you. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, sir, for your valuable inputs. So wherever my experience, wherever we are mounting a delegation, everybody nowadays talking about the collaboration. They don't want to see Indian pharmaceutical industry to continue to be only a trader. So the Indian pharmaceutical industry also realized to some extent, and they are working closely with different partners. That is one issue, sir. The other issue is that, as all our ambassadors have clearly mentioned, the Latin American market is not properly untapped. At the same time, we are depending on our conventional markets like US, Africa, and Europe. So in the days to come, if you are not able to penetrate the markets of Latin America, it's a market of 67 billion. At the generic space is almost 17 billion. Our exports are very, very minuscule. So this will sensitize, and the industry also very seriously thinking about it, and they're present. Almost 21 to 30 companies are working in different parts of Latin America, the Indian companies. So we'll take it forward, sir. What we can do from the Indian pharmaceutical industry is that, the approval in Colombia is one of the fastest in the Latin America, Colombian regulatory approvals. So Indian friends has to make use of this opportunity, and certainly we'll take the help of our missions, and we'll take it as an agenda, and continuously we'll follow up with our manufacturers and to take it forward. And the other day we were thinking about organizing a separate webinar for the entire Latin American countries. That's what we are planning between the Indian industry and the Latin American industry. We wanted to make a matchmaking kind of a thing, sir, with your support. So thank you very much, sir. And the IP recognition also will coordinate with Indian Pharmacopoeia Commission, sir, as per your advice. And thank you so much, sir. We also have His Excellency Sri Subbarayadu Garu. He is Ambassador of India to Peru. At the same time, he is also hails from my own state, Telugu. Namaskaram, Subbarayadu Garu. Nice to see two ambassadors hails from Andhra Pradesh speaks my language. Sir, Peru and very recently, with Lakshmi is coordinating with the mission, and very recently Bolivia sent a aeroplane to lift 20 tons of pharmaceuticals, and it was the Indian pharmaceutical industry and merchant exporters also supported that, and it was a big news in India, and certainly this is going to be an inspiration to other countries also. So, sir, now I welcome you to give your valuable message and advice to the participating delegates and to Farm Excel also. Thank you.
Thank you, Uday Bhaskar Garu. Colleagues, distinguished participants, greetings from the Embassy of India in Lima. One thing I realized today is that how difficult it is to be a last speaker. Given India's strong credentials in pharmaceuticals, medical devices, and healthcare space, and given our long-standing and time-tested engagement with Latin America, I feel this 5-day virtual pharma business meeting is very relevant. My compliments to Formexil and thanks for the opportunity to present certain latest facts and figures in respect of Peru and Bolivia and share some additional thoughts on opportunities, strategy, challenges, and way forward. As regards the current state of bilateral trade in pharmaceuticals, India's pharmaceutical exports have shown an impressive growth last year. Based on official figures of Peru and Bolivia, which are now available for the calendar year 2020, India is the largest source for Bolivia and the second largest for Peru. India's pharma exports increased by almost 63% from 85 million in 2019 to $139 million in 2020, thereby taking our market share from 7.5% to 10.7%, and the position from the 5th largest to the 2nd largest supplier. India is the top supplier of pharmaceutical products to Bolivia, both in 2019 and in 2020, with a market share in the range of 12 to 13% of Bolivia's global pharma imports. India's pharma exports to Bolivia in 2020 accounted for $29 million out of Bolivia's global pharma imports of $238 million. It is a fact that the Indian pharma industry is a key player in Peru and Bolivia and holds a promising future as a reliable supplier of high quality medicines at an affordable price. The potential is significant to further increase India's market share since health sector has been given high priority in both Peru and Bolivia. Peruvian government increased its budget allocation for health to $5.75 billion in 2021, which is a 13.5% increase compared to the previous year. In case of Bolivia, the allocation stands at $4.28 billion, which is 10% of the country's budget. The inadequacy of the existing health system sorely fell during the pandemic has only strengthened the determination of the leadership here to improve the situation. This creates a win-win opportunity for all sides, given India's ability to meet the demand with supplies at competitive costs. Early last year, the governments of Peru and Bolivia had extended zero tariffs on certain pharmaceutical products. In normal course, tariffs on these pharma items are between 6 and 11%. In case of Peru, this special exemption has been extended until 2nd September this year, and for imports into Bolivia, it will be in force until the end of this year. Indian suppliers can make use of this extended opportunity. Government of Peru had attempted to make it mandatory for pharmacies to maintain sufficient stock of affordable generic medicines. An emergency decree was also issued in October 2019 that stipulated a minimum stock of generic medicines in public and private pharmaceutical establishments, including pharmacies. Later, the government published a regulation that ordered all pharmacies and drugstores in the country to have 31 priority generic drugs for public sale. The list contains medicines to treat respiratory diseases, diabetes, high blood pressure, mental health, fungal infections, asthma, etc. So this has also created yet another opportunity. The $350 million medical devices market in Peru is expected to grow substantially. Bolivia is also planning to equip its newly developed and upgraded hospitals. The medical devices segment represents an opportunity. There is no substitute for a focused contact with key players and partners in pharma, medical devices and healthcare segments, prompt response and timely delivery to ensure that Indian industry does not miss the opportunities and remain the first responder to local supply needs. Let me illustrate this aspect with a recent example which Mr. Uday Bhaskar had also already given. When embassy was contacted by the government of Bolivia, we were able to respond quickly with the help of Farmexil, and this led to Bolivia importing around 20 tons of critical medicines from India last week. Whenever situation improves, there is a need to resume visits of pharma delegations to the region. The trade missions led by Farmexil between 2015 and 2019 played a role in positioning India as a key player in markets here. The last trade mission in August 2019 to Peru and Bolivia had seen about 600 buyer-seller meetings. Plan well and take timely action with respect to local partnerships and regulatory approvals. Several Indian pharma companies have their representative offices in Peru. This physical presence helps in expanding business. More Indian companies could consider setting up base in Peru and explore local opportunities. Majority of Indian pharma products enter market here through private importers. Indian industry needs to look at the public procurement channel, which is done through direct purchase or through national and international tendering. The National Center for the Supply of Strategic Resources in Health, CINARES in Peru, and the Central Health Supply Center, CIAS in Bolivia, under the respective health ministries, are in charge of managing the supply of strategic health resources. As mentioned by my senior colleagues, the registration process is a critical aspect to be considered by the Indian companies. There is a strict regulatory system in these countries as they have high quality standards. Product registration, plant inspection, and quality control tend to take more than stipulated timelines. The process can take between 6 months to 1 year or more. The validity of registration of all products or devices is 5 years, counted from the date of granting. The re-registration application can be submitted 1 year before the expiry of existing registration. The concerns of Indian industry have been highlighted to the concerned regulatory agencies here, and initiatives are being taken to conclude MOUs between the regulatory bodies. We are currently negotiating MOUs on cooperation involving CDSCO of India with TIHI-MED, the Directorate General for Medicine Supplies and Drugs of Peru, and AHMED of Bolivia. The conclusion of MOUs is expected to help fast track the regulatory approval process. It shall be the embassy's endeavor to facilitate and support efforts of industry and Pharmexil to take forward our trade and business partnerships here. I'm happy to note that there are fairly good number of participants from both Peru and Bolivia who registered themselves for this business meet. I do hope that the Indo-Latam Connect 2021, supported by an artificial intelligence driven matchmaking process, will further open up new avenues and help players on both sides realize their objectives. Let me stop here. Thank you. Muchas gracias.
सिद्धू क्या है क्लासरूम एंड हो रहा है 4 सेकंड्स में.
Is sir, your unmute time can.
Thank you very much, His Excellency.
Okay.
One news we all should cherish is that there is an 82% positive growth to Peru. So that the value is 115.74 million with a growth rate of 82%. This is the highest growth rate recorded actually in the recent past. So we must congratulate the efforts of His Excellency, and particularly the other news is about Bolivia lifting the stocks. These two are very enthusiastic, and Pharmexil is also very happy. Lakshmi and Mr. Tandon from your machine, both of them has very closely monitored that Bolivian. It's a good and big news for Indian pharmaceutical industry next to our COVID-19 vaccine. So certainly your messages are very precious, and it's an eye-opener to our Indian pharmaceutical industry also. So we'll continue to work closely with you, and once again, I am privileged and honored to moderate a session of 5 very senior-most diplomats from India. Thank you so much, sir, and thank you so much. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, sir. Indeed, it's a great pleasure and privilege for all of us to have an opportunity to host all the senior-most ambassadors to the important countries of Latin America region. I, on behalf of Pharmexil and all the associated chambers and the guests in the audience, and on behalf of the entire audience, we extend a heartfelt gratitude to Her Excellency Ms. Anita Nayarji, His Excellency Mr. Manpreet Oraji, His Excellency Sanjeev Ranjanji, His Excellency Suresh Reddy ji, and His Excellency Subba Raidu Garu, and Mr. Ravi Uday Bhaskar DG Pharmexil for gracing your presence and sharing your valuable inputs and suggestions to the Indian industry. Indeed, the interactions during the session today have provided key insights on country-specific opportunities and areas of collaborations for the Indian industry. This will certainly aid the Indian industry while formulating their strategies to overcome the trade barriers and challenges, while expanding their business operations in the Latin America region. I take this moment to extend our special appreciations to His Excellency Mr. Andre Aranya Correa Julago, Ambassador of Brazil to India, for his best wishes through a video message, which we have uploaded in our event page. Further, I extend a profound gratitude to all the associated chambers from the Latin America. And we extend a sincere thanks to Mr. Cristiano from Colombia India Chamber of Commerce, Ms. Amparo, Coordinator of India-Mexico Chamber of Commerce, Ms. Letitia, General Coordinator of India-Brazil Chamber of Commerce, Ms. Andrea from the Chile India Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Rohit Rao, Incham Peru, Ms. Monica, Lima Chamber of Commerce, and Mr. Sergio from the Bolivian Chamber of Commerce for their continued support in making this program a great success. Indeed, the event of this magnitude could not happen overnight, and the chambers we have started working almost a couple of months back, and with their continued support, we could have got very good participation of the overseas delegates from Latin America. Most importantly, I take this opportunity to thank all the officers of the Indian missions, especially the commercial representatives, Mr. Sanjay Tandon, Mr. Anand Prakash, Mr. Abhishek, Ms. Juhi Rai, and Mr. Awad Kumar for their proactive approach and never-ending support towards organizing this event. I owe special gratitude to our Director General Sodhe Bhaskar for initiating this idea and backing us in the motivation. Sir, I fail in my duty if I don't properly recognize the contribution of my team members who have arranged all the necessary logistics to make this event a grand success. I place on record my special appreciations to Mr. Siddharth, who has coordinated with all the exhibitors and overseas buyers and the chambers, and Mr. Prashant and Chakravarti, who are handling all the web-related activities. Lastly, I express my sincere thanks to all the media personnel for joining this inaugural program. I once again thank all of you for being with us today, and we hope we are all going to have a fruitful business meetings during this 5-day event. We wish all the exhibitors a successful event and urge all the overseas delegates to visit the exhibitors and have a fruitful business meetings in the days to come. Thank you so much and namaskar.
ये क्या हो गया क्या आ गया अरे ये तो कंटिन्यू हो रहा है ना रिवर्स यस रिवर्स हो रहा है यस हो गया ना क्लोज कर सकते हैं ना अभी ओके गुड ओके